Hey, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified YouTube channel. My name is Salvador Brigman, and today we're getting into how to come up with good product ideas, and specifically good product ideas that you can either sell on Shopify, you can sell on Amazon, or that you can launch with a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo campaign. And I'll talk all about the benefits of doing that in today's YouTube video. Okay, let's get into this. My name is Sal. I've introduced and helped lots of different products over the years. I have a podcast, Crowdfunding Demystified, where we've interviewed almost 300 people that have created their own products. And I'm really well versed when it comes to launching these products on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. But before you go to that point where you raise a bunch of money on Kickstarter in order to purchase the minimum order quantity to do a mass production of the product, you obviously got to have the product itself. And that all starts with the idea behind coming up with a really great product, which you can eventually sell via an online e-commerce store or an Amazon or Shopify or Wix or whatever. So I kind of want to talk about today how to come up with good product ideas and where great product ideas come from. There are many different categories under the sun when it comes to e-commerce. And it's so important because the advice you might give to starting a new athletic apparel brand is going to be very different than the advice you give to someone who's trying to create a new smartphone watch or trying to create a new watch in general versus a new way to carry liquid, having a new glass of some kind, or cooking like a new knife, right? So the advice you give depending on the category is actually really going to differ, and that's something you should know, and the lens you should perceive any kind of video you watch on YouTube that are telling you to do things. It really depends on your specific product, the end user. But as a result, usually people tend to come up with product ideas based on a few different factors. The first is seeing other products do well. And this is usually the worst way to come up with a product idea, and probably the easiest to copy, honestly. Because when you see someone do well, let's just say you're seeing them getting lots of Amazon orders, or you're seeing their product all over Facebook, or you're seeing their product on Kickstarter, and then it's like, oh my gosh, look at this watch is raising a bunch of money. I should make a watch, right? That's like the rationalization you have in your head. Or you see another kind of product doing really well. You're like, this new game or this new tabletop does well. I should make a card game that's just like that. And then you go out there and you try and create a Me Too product. And this doesn't usually go very well because when you're just creating a Me Too product, there's not enough differentiation. You're competing against a major product out there. That's really not the best way to come up with an idea. But what it can do is it can get you excited and get you thinking about at least making your own product idea. When you see other people that are just like you be successful in a matter of months, you're like, why the heck am I not doing this, right? So it's very inspirational. One of the reasons why I love to have successful entrepreneurs on my podcast. It's also a great thing to get the juices flowing and get you excited. But it's not so great when it comes to nailing down the actual product which you should make. Instead, what you want to do is, rather than looking at the product, look at two other layers deeper. So the first layer deeper is look at the problem. Now the problem is what this product is trying to solve. Basically the thing that other people are using it for. Why is it that they're buying it? You're not gonna buy a drill because you want a nice looking drill. You're gonna buy a drill because you wanna hang up a picture, right? Or you want to drill a hole in the wall so that you can change your house in some way. You're buying the end result, obviously. You're not just buying like a nice looking drill. Or like a nail. You're not buying a nail, you're nailing it so you can hang up something. You're buying the end result. So you want to think a little bit about the problem actually behind that product, rather than just looking at the product and trying to copy it in some way. That's the first layer deeper. The next layer deeper is thinking about the people that experience the problem. And this is actually where the money is. And not a lot of people tell you this. Everyone's going to tell you, look at the problem, like focus on the problem, man. That's actually not completely true. It's actually more important to look at the people who experience the problem, because depending on the people, it's going to really change the type of product you create, and also the price point which you command, the profitability of your business. And I'll give you two separate examples. So let's just take that drill example. You could solve the problem, which is creating a drill. Let's just say it's really affordable, low cost for the average person out there that wants to go to Walmart and buy a drill. Chances are there are a lot of other people that are trying to do that. Instead, you create a specialty drill that's for one specific task. Maybe it's just for hanging a painting on a wall if you have a studio apartment and you don't want to buy any really expensive drill, but just something that's easy that you can use, like a hand drill, right? That's for a very specific task. In that way, you're automatically starting to differentiate yourself from the competition. In addition, maybe it's not just a hand drill, it's a multi-drill that has other kinds of components in it that allows you to also accomplish other items within your house. So now suddenly it's like, oh, this is for a very specific type of person, or maybe it's even a high-end drill that has lots of other interchanging components. It's for people that are super serious and carpenters and those kinds of things. So it's actually not just about the problem, because in this example, the problem would be hanging a picture. It's more about the person who is experiencing the problem. And that's kind of the second layer deeper, where when you're thinking about product ideas, even if you just have an idea come to your mind, think about, number one, what problem does that product solve? Number two, who is the person that cares about that problem, that is going to encounter that problem in their everyday life? Let's take my Beats headphone for example here. And I also want to get into some other interesting ways to generate these ideas, but let's just go down this path just for a little bit. Let's take the Beats headphones here. Beats headphones are very different from Apple headphones. There's just these little earbuds here, which are very different from Sony, which is very different from all these other types of brands. Beats really established a category of its own, which is luxury premium headphones that are for people who really love music. And obviously that kind of has its base in hip hop. So the person who created Beats really knew who, Dr. Dre really knew who the end user was, because obviously he loves listening to music. I think he's a DJ and like mixes music also and produces music. He probably does a lot more stuff that I don't even know about. Like, I'm not super cool in that way, knowing all that stuff. But he had a very crystal clear sense of who the person was that experienced the problem and the end user. And as a result, he can come up with a really unique product offering, which he eventually sold to Apple for, I think it was like $2 billion or $1 billion or something crazy like that, right? But he started with observing a problem in his own life. So this is one of the other ways in which we come up with product ideas. The first way is we see other people doing something. So for example, 50 Cent, he came up with SMS Audio, which also produces headphones because he saw Dr. Dre doing so well. This is a Me Too product. This is an example of him seeing someone else do well, so I'm gonna create the same product. Versus Dr. Dre, he more so saw a problem in his life and then came up with a solution for a very specific group of people, and why Beats headphones became so big. So the first way is seeing other people, thinking about the problem, thinking about the people that they're serving. The second way is encountering a problem in your own life. And this is through observation. This is situational awareness. If you're going to the faucet, let's just say, and you're washing your hands and you don't like the way the water is coming out of the faucet, and you're like, why should a faucet just have one setting? Why don't we have a multi-setting faucet? They didn't always have multi-setting faucets until someone had an idea, okay, let's have one setting if you're washing your dishes, one setting if you're washing your hands. You can change the setting on the faucet. And it's very simple, but it's an exact example of someone coming up with a product idea because they noticed something within their own life. So sometimes you are the person who experiences the problem in your life. You're the person who creates a solution, and thus it's a unique solution because you have a really good insight into the problem. In other cases, you observe a problem. You observe something that is happening that other people are undergoing, or that other people are not having their needs met in some way, or if they are being met, then it's just not being very effectively met, and you can create a better solution than what is currently out there. I want to take a quick second to interrupt this video to introduce you to the sponsor of today's video, The Gadget Flow. Gadget Flow reaches over 28 million people, and they've been around since 2012. They're Indiegogo and Kickstarter experts. They featured over 5,000 crowdfunding campaigns. If you have a tech or design campaign, it is a great platform to generate awareness and get backers. Check them out at thegadgetflow.com/submit and list your project today. This means either you're going to be coming up with the idea creatively from your own life, you're going to be coming up with the idea by observing other people and the problems they experience in their life, or you're going to be looking at things that are working right now in the marketplace, success stories, trends, those kinds of things. And rather than creating a Me Too product, you're going to be asking yourself, what problem does this address? What group of people care about this? And that's really when the great product ideas are going to start to come into your head, and you're going to be able to then put together something that actually is authentic and that actually is a leap forward than other people and other entrepreneurs that are out there. The final component of coming up with really great product ideas actually is something that I think is not really very well taught, and something that is really lacking, honestly, when it comes to most innovators, most creative types, most entrepreneurs. They just don't know how to do this. And the problem with this is when you have an idea, it stays in your head. If you have an idea for a book, I remember my first book I wrote, I was in high school, and like before I did any kind of writing like that, I was like always thinking, someday I'm gonna write a book, someday I'm gonna write a book, someday I'm gonna do this, right? And the problem is it always stays in your head. And when it's in your head, you can never help other people. You can never communicate with other people. It's never something that people can eventually buy. And when it's in your head, it's almost like it's optimal because you don't encounter any problems because your brain is always going to solve these solutions. So like if you come up with a product idea in your head, you're like, it works perfectly every single time. It's amazing. It's this wonderful fantasy land where no matter what the problem is, you can change the product idea very quickly in your head, right? So really where great product ideas come from is once you get into the ideation stage. Once you get into making drafts of the product, once you start making the initial prototype, whether that's a functional prototype or just a model of some kind of mock-up, that's when you actually start to generate really unique ideas because you start to realize, oh man, I created this new headphone, but it's made out of these really bad materials and it breaks very easily. Or I created this headphone, but it's actually not very comfortable. I have to rethink how I'm going to have these headphones be on my head. Let's just say you create that example, that faucet idea where you have multiple streams and types of way the water comes out, depending on if you're washing your sink or you're washing your dishes or you're washing sponge or like your hands, right? You're changing up the faucet and you create the first prototype and you're like, oh, this actually doesn't work very well. I have to fine tune it, I have to change it. Or you find most of the times when people are using the faucet, they're actually not washing their hands. They don't even care about that setting. Instead, they'd rather have a setting for, cleaning out the sink itself versus washing the dishes. You're like, oh, okay, so those are the two settings that people care about. You're learning so much more about your customers once you get the product out of your head onto a piece of paper that you can show other people. And also once you create the initial prototype, that's when the idea goes and starts to mold and change. So rather than when I was first getting started, I would think like, okay, I'm just gonna go from idea to this real physical world thing, gonna sell that thing, and that's how it's gonna work, right? Like, that's how I would think, very black and white. But in reality, the way it kind of works is it almost is like, it starts with an idea in your head, you get it onto the paper, it starts to change throughout this ideation phase, and it might end up with something that is very different from you originally thought. It might be light years different, or it might be a different, just focusing on one feature of the product. It might be thinking a little bit more about the people that you're gonna have. You're gonna cater this to some other people versus on other ones that you originally thought, or you're gonna narrow the demographic. I can't tell you, this even happens up until the final launch of a Kickstarter campaign with marketing, and even afterwards, once you get feedback from your customers who have purchased your product through your Kickstarter campaign, then they tell you they like this, they don't like this. It changes even more. I've had people on my show, like the Kosan travel dress, they had this idea as a result of their existing customers in a completely different industry, which was backpacks for travelers. They decided to make an apparel Kosan travel dress, raised $800K on Kickstarter, came on my podcast, and they're like, yeah, we saw this as a result of our customers. So the idea should be very moldable and very flexible until you get it to market. And even once you get it to market, always be willing to mold and change in order to deliver something that the customers want and that they're excited about. And that's really the formula behind coming up with really good product ideas, is not being completely super rigid. Be rigid about the process, that you gotta go, next week, I gotta at least get some sketches here. Be rigid about, now we're gonna make the prototype. Now we're gonna go through this process. We're gonna do this every step of the way. We're not gonna be half-assed about this. We're not gonna be half-hearted. We're really gonna go through this entire process. But be very flexible about what you learn about the customer. Be very flexible about the ways in which you solve the problem, about the materials, about everything, every other variable that goes in the product. Be very flexible about, but when it comes to being willing to go through the phase, it's like, this is gonna happen. Like, I'm doing this. Because otherwise, you're very likely just gonna give up on it. It's like when it comes out to you, like, it's so much work to sketch this out, I'm not gonna even do it. So just be very rigid with adhering to deadlines and adhering to this goal of eventually getting your product out there into the marketplace. If you would like help when it comes to coming up with this idea, but also implementing it and finding out, should I be going on Amazon? Should I be going on Shopify? Should I be doing a Kickstarter campaign? You can book a one-on-one coaching call with me below, and we could talk about some of the goals that you have as an entrepreneur, as a designer, as an engineer, as a marketer with this product, what you gotta do in order to be successful here when it comes to e-commerce and when it comes to raising money with a crowdfunding campaign. We can get into all of that. Book a one-on-one coaching call with me below. My name is Salvador Brigman. Also, give me a thumbs up on this video if you liked it. Come subscribe to this channel if you want more content like this. And also leave a comment down below if you got any questions. I will see you next time.